Hello and welcome back, everyone, to yet another episode of the College Sports Hive. If you don't know, now you know. That's Leif Tuesday, and I'm Scott Stevens, and we're here with you to bring you our picks for this upcoming week. So this is a fun one where we get to kind of just go on and we'll share with you where we stand thus far about our picks and all of that good stuff so far this season. And then we will actually pick 16 games in this episode. So a lot of games to pick. We'll give some scores and things for our games of the week, which will be at the end of the episode. So it'll be a little bit shorter, but should be really fun and engaging of why we think some of these teams are going to win in the biggest games this week. So with that being said, let's jump right into where we stand so far this year. We are tied, dead even. After I went 5-2 last week, and Leaf went 7-0. So let's give a round of applause to everyone out there. Our Instagram followers are all clapping for Leaf 2 leads, 7-0, perfect week. We're tied at 100 wins and 66 losses. So we're pretty much 2/3 of no, yeah. Is that 2/3? Does that work out that
Little
way?
over 3/5.
A little over 3/5, sure. Um,
I think.
but we're doing all right. We're batting about I don't even want to try and break down the percentage. This is not a math podcast. This is all about sports. I talk about sports because I'm not good at math, so feel free to come at my math skills. But we're doing all right, and we're dead even. So this is a big week. This is a big week for us. I finally got a win against the spread because we picked the Gonzaga line correctly. So I'm 1-2 now against the spread, and Leafs 2-1. So he's got the lead over me in that. And so yeah, your thoughts on where we stand in our picks.
I think we're doing pretty well. We've both gone through a little phase there too, where we try to pick too many upsets, and that's often where we get caught up. And I'm a little nervous for this week because the docket I created and all the games are really good, and two, I usually don't fare so well when I can't make decisions, and I just kind of wing them out when it's happening, and that's what it looks like it's going to be because my computer died midway through creating them. So we'll see how this goes. I'm really excited for this week, though. Jokes aside, like this is one of the best basketball weeks of the season before we get to like tournament week, championship tournament weeks, and I mean this is when you want to get hot. Quite candidly, the teams that win March Madness typically come into the tournaments hot. Whether they win their tournament or not, that isn't the huge factor. They just close their seasons well, feel confident as a group, and confidence is a huge thing, especially when there's no fans. Like sometimes you can have a benefit of being stirred on by others, but this is a very intrinsically motivated tournament. I mean, we've got limited attendance, so teams are going to just be willing themselves to win for the sake of winning. And I think that if you can build confidence through finishing up late February, early March really nicely, that these are some of the biggest weeks that can really impact the tournament even a month ahead of time.
Yeah, definitely. I couldn't agree more. It's a huge week, a lot at stake, not only for us individually, but for more importantly these teams, and whatnot. Before we jump in, if any of you can see this, it's backwards, I know, but that says 60%. So we're 60% in our picks. I can do some functions of math, and so that thanks, shout out to Apple, always having my back with the calculator app there. 60%. We're doing all right. We're doing all right. Picking 166 games doesn't even sound real at this point. It just seems like that's an absurdly large number. But here we are, 60%. And now it's time to jump in and do some of these picks for real. And let's start things out in the Big 12 and get to Texas Tech at Oklahoma State.
I just want to say real quickly that 60% is just about exactly 3/5. It was a little over, so my estimate was pretty spot on there. So I'm proud of myself as well. But I'm going to say, as for this game, this is a really interesting one because they've got Cade Cunningham. And in case you don't know, he is a stud. So I highly recommend watching while you can because he's going to the NBA very quickly. I'm going to go with Texas Tech in this one, though. They've been in a little bit of a slide. They came off a pause, lost to Kansas. I just don't see them staying in this slide. I think they're too good of a team, too good defensively. They're going to make Cade really work. I think it's going to be a close game, but I'm going to go with Texas Tech in a narrow one. I think Mac McClung and the defense, the team defense of Texas Tech will be just enough to get them past Oklahoma State.
Yeah, this is a really tough one. Right off the bat for us to pick, and just before I give my pick, I'm glad one of us can estimate math better than the other one. So good on you. Oklahoma State. I swear to golly, I've like never picked them on this podcast. And, like never, and I don't know why, but this is a prime time to pick Oklahoma State. They're playing at home. Cade Cunningham is very good, as you mentioned, and Texas Tech's on a slide. But with that being said, I think Texas Tech has too much talent, and they're going to bust out of the slide. I don't think that they're going to lose. I think they've lost two in a row. I don't think they will lose three. But we've said that a lot. That's usually pretty a pretty good telltale sign that the team's going to lose three in a row, because I feel like that's happened more often than they haven't lost three in a row, especially with some of these blue bloods. But give me Texas Tech. I really love Mac McClung. I think they're going to right the ship here, and this is almost a must-win game for Texas Tech in my eyes to kind of stay relevant in the conversation of the Big 12. So I like their chances of getting it done with that much on the line. All right, Oregon at number 19, USC. I think these are probably two of the best teams in the Pac-12 right now. And who you got winning this one?
I really have no idea. And I've tried to work it out a few times in my head in terms of like stylistics. I think that Oregon's got a lot of like better players in the sense that they've got some versatility from their 2 spot to their 5 spot. But then you've got the Mobley brothers are so big and so athletic that a lot of like what usually you're like, oh, the mobility of the 5s that Oregon implies, they're like 6'8" and sturdy. That just doesn't scare me as much. And then at the same time, I don't believe in USC. I see them lose to Arizona by 9, a team that they should, I frankly think is pretty mediocre. In the Arizona Wildcats. So I don't really know who's going to win this one, but I'm going to take a stab in the dark. I'm going to take the home team in this one. I think they're the more consistent team, but I do think Dana Altman is the better coach by a wide margin. And I'm not a big Andy Enfield guy at USC. I think he's doing a good job this year, but also he's got supreme talent in Evan Mobley. So I'm going to go with USC in this one. I'm going to hope that Evan Mobley just can dominate inside as well as Isaiah Mobley, and they can get enough guard production. But Oregon's trending in the right direction, and I think they might be the best, like most informed team in the Pac-12 right now.
Yeah, I'm going to go Oregon. They've won 5 in a row. 5 in a row with my math's correct. Wins over Washington, Arizona State, Arizona, and Colorado, which Colorado is always an Achilles heel for that Oregon team. And they got a 3-point win over Utah on Saturday. So I'm going to go Oregon. I do think Dana Altman's a better coach, like you touched on. Evan Mobley's the best player on the floor, so that's hard to pick against in my eyes. But with that being said, I think this is a proving ground for Oregon. I do think they are still, in my eyes, the best team in the conference. And so with that being said, I think that they need to win this game, especially with the kind of the traction that USC's gained with the AP poll all the way up to 19. I think this is a must win for Oregon, and not necessarily to make the NCAA tournament or anything like that. I just think this is for their confidence sake, a must win game. And I'm going to go with the Ducks to get it done.
I've got a funny. Oh, sorry.
No,
Go
no,
ahead
no,
if you're
no,
still going.
no,
I got a
was
funny
done.
thought I had last time I watched Oregon. I said, man, what are they missing? They're missing like just a heady point guard. I was like, oh man, they had Peyton Pritchard last year, didn't they? That's a first round draft pick. I got 2 questions. One, why was Oregon not elite last year? Because right now they're borderline top 25 team, and then they have a guy in Peyton Pritchard who is obviously the best player in the entire Pac-12 last year. So I can't figure out why they're good this year and they weren't better last year when they had the Pac-12 Player of the Year. Like if they had Peyton Pritchard, to me, this is the top 10 team in the country, and it baffles me. So I thought that was a funny thought when I was watching them play there last night. I was like, man, if they could just have Peyton Pritchard back, they'd be top 10. I was like, that's exactly what they had.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm not sure where I see them, but I certainly think that if they had Peyton Pritchard, I'd be taking them.
Yeah, he was such a beast, but I swear he was there for like 15 years. I swear he was the point guard at Oregon for 10 years. But anyway, no Peyton Pritchard, but I'll still take the Ducks on the road over number 19 USC. All right, a big matchup. I think this is Tuesday night in the Big 12. It is number 17 Kansas traveling to number 14 Texas. We've kind of highlighted how Kansas has had some of this resurgence and they're playing a lot better basketball. They are traveling to Texas, and Texas is we've been high on them this season. They've kind of been faltering lately. They've had some wins, some losses, a little bit inconsistent. But with that being said, they will match up on the home floor of Texas. Who you got in this one?
Another one where I really don't know. I think that Kansas is playing better basketball right now. Texas beat them by 25 last time at Fog Allen Fieldhouse, and that's something that kind of factors into my head on this one. And then lastly, my biggest takeaway in this is that I think Texas has kind of fallen against each other. I think in their game against West Virginia, we saw Courtney Ramey and Andrew Jones getting after it on the bench, and Fran Fraschilla was quick to point that out. And he said, if Texas starts falling apart in this game, you can pinpoint this moment. And I'll be curious whether this results in a win or a loss for Texas here. I'll be curious to monitor that going forward, because this is a team that has all the talent in the world. They've got that front court, they've got defense, they've got scoring from guard play. But if they internally have issues, that could be really dangerous, because those two are kind of their best scorers. And Kansas is starting to figure out how to play. So I'm going to go with Kansas. I'm just going to take the team playing better basketball. It's kind of weird to say that Kansas isn't the more talented team in this game, but I'm going to just take the team playing more cohesive basketball right now. That said, Texas is front line, I think, is going to overwhelm David McCormick. I'm just going to trust the Kansas guards a little more than I do the Texas ones with that kind of turmoil on the inside.
Yeah, I'm gonna go Texas at home. I think I'm gonna go with their athleticism. They're playing on their home floor. They do allow fans in. We've talked about their piped-in crowd noise, which is annoying. But I think I'm over that. I think I'm past the point of picking against them just because they have piped-in crowd noise. But anyway, I will go Texas at home. I really love Matt Coleman, and I think if there's a guy to rally these boys together and get them to play cohesively, like you said, because it's definitely been apparent that they haven't been, especially throughout some of the Big 12 matchups that they've had. I think it's Shaka Smart. I really love the guy. I think people can relate to wanting to go out and win for him. I think he really needs to take control of the scenario that's happening between some of the players and really be the guy that kind of facilitates all of that and really be the head coach of this team. And so, yeah, I like what Texas has. I've always been high on them this season. Kansas is playing really good basketball right now, but I think Texas at home is just going to be a little bit too much. I think this is going to be a very, very close game. I think it's going to be within a couple points. Going to be entertaining down to the wire. But give me Texas at home, I suppose. I don't know. I think so.
I don't know either.
But anyway, before we get any further on, this is just something that came into my mind as we were talking Oregon USC, because that game is going to be on FS1. Does it, and this is completely off topic, so we're taking a sidebar. I apologize, but does it annoy you that when you watch games on FS1, every single time that they go to a commercial break, they play like that little ring of the one rap song? I forget exactly what it's called, but now I can't get the little jingle out of my head.
Well, I actually love it. I love when they go to the breaks on Fox and Fox Sports 1. It reminds me of me being a little kid watching the Jazz games, and they always had the same thing right before the pregame, right as the game was about to tip off, it had a jingle. I haven't heard that since I was a little kid. It's not the same. It's very close though. Gives me a little deja vu. I love it. And then they bring in some good guys. I like Steve Lavin at the half. Casey Jacobson's pretty good. I like it. I'm not, and usually the best part is they usually have Gus Johnson on the calls. I love Gus Johnson, so I don't mind it. Sometimes I really enjoy it. Actually, usually at the beginning of the game, I really like it. When the game gets on, I'm too focused into the game. But at the beginning of the game, I hear that I'm like, oh, it's basketball time. Let's go.
Yes,
so it's not my least favorite.
So I'm with you. I agree that it's like good in certain components. I love Gus Johnson. You'll never hear me talk bad about Gus Johnson, but the song is "Heart of a Champion" by Nelly, and it just popped into my head when we were talking about it. And I think I would really like it if it was just like their like catchphrase of "This is when the game's going to start. We're going to play it." But it's literally every single time they go to break. It's at the under 16 commercial. It's the under 12 commercial. It's the under 8 commercial. It's the under 4 commercial. And for those of you who don't know, I'm just gonna play it for a little second. And It's
music
every
to my
single
ears.
time.
It's music to my ears. If you told me, like, I'm like conditioned like Pavlov's dogs. Like they hear a bell and they salivate. I hear that and I'm like, I'm ready to watch college basketball already. Like you shouldn't have done that. I'm too hyped up now. What time's that game? But
It's at 7. It's at 7 here. So
oh, that's a long time away. But it's all right. I'll go shoot some hoops beforehand or something like that. But now I want to watch basketball. I want to play some basketball. I love it. I didn't know it was a song. I totally thought that was their jingle and that alone. Like that is news to me. But I'm gonna start listening to that song now.
it's just a little painful over and over again, especially when we watch as much basketball as we do on FS1 and Fox. You hear it like night in and night out. You're just like, give me something else. But anyway, that was just complete.
I've got one more thing.
Yeah.
I'm gonna shamelessly plug the amount of sports we watch here. I took a quiz once, and it was like a YouTube. They played jingles, and they were from like 2000s on. So I'm 20. I've been watching sports since I was like 4. So I listened from like 2005 onwards. And I got an 100% on the jingles, the random sporting jingles, whether it be Monday Night Football on ESPN, whether it be Sunday Night Football on NBC, CBS, Fox, college basketball, NBA basketball. It was really weird. My roommate thought I was having a stroke or something, but I'm proud of it, and I think this is a good place to boast about that because I don't know where else I can talk about that.
No, that's impressive. I think I would score highly. I don't know if I get 100%, but I think I would score highly. But yeah, very impressive. It kind of reminds me of that video that we see of the kid that has a cousin who can say every single score of a Yankees game from like 2004 on. It's just an
I'm very
incredible
jealous
feat.
of that guy. I mean,
Yeah.
he's got like savant syndrome or something.
Yeah.
But I wish I could do that. That
Yeah.
is beyond my reach. But I was still proud of my jingle knowledge.
You're telling me you can't recite Stanford scores from 2004 with who scored every touchdown?
I could probably get you scores pretty close in the past 10 years. I'm going to test this.
I'm sure you can. But anyway, yes, that's our nice little sidebar. Sorry to take us on a little bit of a tangent there, but it just popped into my head when we were talking Fox Sports 1. But getting us back on track, we'll jump back to the Big Ten and we'll continue to pick some of these games. And we have Indiana at Rutgers. This is another just really, really good matchup in the Big Ten. They just keep coming in force. Who you got in this one?
This is a tough one because both teams really need this win for their they're not on the bubble, I would say. I think they're both like firmly into the tournament, but they're kind of varying between like 7 and 10 seeds. And I'm going to go with the better team in this one. I think Rutgers is a more consistent, better team. I really like Indiana. I feel like they just play a lot of really gritty, grindy games, and they play a lot of close ones. I'm going to go with Rutgers because I think they play solid enough defense in which Trace Jackson Davis is going to have to battle against Miles Johnson. And that is so much of their offense that Rutgers should be favored because they can produce offense from more players. They have more focal points to their offense. I would not be surprised if Indiana wins this. I think they just had a tough loss against Michigan State where they played really well until the end of the game. And I feel like they'll come out and play better. But that said, I'm going to go with Rutgers just because I think Trace Jackson Davis won't be as efficient as he has been, and their offense is already kind of a weakness of their team.
Yeah, I'm going to go Rutgers as well. I'm starting to get back on the Rutgers bandwagon. I almost tossed them out on the last little episode that we did about teams that could be a little bit more deserving of rankings than Missouri and Tennessee from the SEC. And Rutgers is a team that came to mind for me. I really like that they've kind of turned the page a little bit. They're playing better basketball. They're playing more consistently. You also see like the heart come out a little bit more when you watch a Rutgers team play now than you did a couple weeks ago. And they're like in the midst of their slide whenever they weren't playing very good basketball. So I'm going to go Rutgers as well. They're playing at home, which is not as big of an advantage as it is elsewhere throughout the country, but someone is pounding on the roof upstairs. I am so sorry. That is never really a thing, but you all know that sometimes I hear my upstairs neighbor now. So, but anyway, to get back to where I was going with all of that, I like the way that Rutgers does play at home, even though there isn't necessarily a huge, big crowd advantage. And I just think they have exactly what you touched on: more opportunities to score, more guys that can go get a bucket. So I like Rutgers at home in this one, but it's going to be. I think if you look at an unranked matchup of the week, this is probably it in my eyes.
Yeah, absolutely. I think this could be one of the better games of the week. Maybe not in terms of, like you said, just numbers or by their names, but I think these two teams match up very well. They're very similar in terms of both quality and in terms of play style. So I'm excited. I'm gonna try to tune into this one. And there are a lot of good games to catch this week, but don't let the lack of rankings by their names fool you.
Absolutely, it's going to be good stuff. All right, Western Kentucky at number 12, Houston. Who you got in this one?
I am very tempted to take Western Kentucky. I've told you I love Charles Bassey from the beginning of the year. I put him as one of our player of the weeks not too long ago. I think he's going to be the best player on the floor. I just think Houston is too much at home with some time to prep. I think that they've got a lot to prove after they fell. This is not a conference game. This is a non-conference kind of just an add-in game. But they fell behind Wichita State in terms of the Americans. So I think they want to keep their seeding as high as possible. And this is a good way to do so because Western Kentucky has some really solid wins. Western Kentucky actually beat number 6 Alabama in a neutral site game. So this is a quality team. And I'm going to go with Houston just because I think their team defense is that solid. But I would not be surprised in the slightest if Western Kentucky wins this one.
Yeah, I would agree with you. Houston's been a team that I've really struggled to get a beat on recently, and I think that's a little bit more for personal reasons, but also they've just been playing a little bit more inconsistently than some of the top teams in the country. I think a lot of that comes from the fact that they are playing in the American, and the American's taking big strides, but they're still not kind of the caliber of some of the other conferences in the country. So when you see Houston drop kind of an inexplicable game where they lose by like 10 to an American team, you're left kind of scratching your head. So with that aspect of things, it's hard for me to really be like, absolutely, Houston's going to win this game. But I do think Houston at home should be the favorite, and I will pick them. But watch out, Western Kentucky has everything to be able to pull off another upset over to upset Houston again for not only the first team that's done that this season by a long shot. All right, number 19 USC is back in our docket, traveling to Colorado this time. Who you got in this matchup of Big 12 schools? I think if Oregon isn't that team that's the best matchup in the Pac-12 for USC, I think Colorado might be a very close second.
Yeah, and for that reason, I'm going to take Colorado. I think these are two really tough matchups back to back for USC, and I feel like they're going to go one of two. And I hope I got the order right. But I think the biggest difference between these two teams is that Colorado is very experienced, and they have a point guard in McKinley Wright that I don't think that USC has the caliber of a player close. I think Evan Mobley is the best player on the court, certainly the most talented, but I think Evan Batty and Derek and Dallas Walton and Tristan Da Silva can battle with him up front. And I think that Colorado has a unique blend of really good shooting ability, especially from the free throw line, first in the nation in free throw shooting right now, as well as just an interior, exterior kind of balance to how they're playing. So I'm going to go with Colorado. Also, playing in Colorado is hard even without fans just because of altitude. So I think that's a big factor, and it typically helps Colorado. So I'm going to go with Colorado. I wonder if I'm not saying this will happen. One thing I think could happen is Evan Mobley is really a good shot blocker, but he chases blocks. And I think a guy like Evan Batty, who's very sturdy and shorter for a big guy, could trouble him with a lot of pump fakes and just girth to him. And so if you could get Evan Mobley in foul trouble, I think you got a really great chance to win this game.
I don't know why girth made me laugh, but that was a heck of a word. Good word choice. No, I think your reasoning is really sound. I'm going to take Colorado as well, which makes me very scared about my Oregon pick because I think this one's more sound for me. I would say more solid. I would feel a lot more comfortable in this Colorado win over USC than I do the Oregon win. So a little bit worried about that, but other than the fact that I just think Colorado playing at home is a completely different animal. It's not to the caliber of Minnesota playing at home. Minnesota playing at home might be the best team in the country, but I'm kidding. But Colorado playing at home is a different animal. They're very good they're very good in their own building. Altitude plays a factor. So I love McKinley Wright. I've always loved McKinley Wright ever since he was starting at Colorado. So I think things are moving in that direction in terms of I've always really thought that Colorado and Oregon were the best teams in the Pac-12 this year at least. And so I think I can hold my hat on the fact that I picked that way, if that makes any sense at all. But picking against USC twice is definitely going to bite me in the butt. So we'll see which one it is, and hopefully it's not both. But I'll take Colorado at home in this one. All right, Boise State at number 22, San Diego State. We talked about San Diego State a little bit in our last episode in terms of news and things like that. So are you going to pick San Diego State in this matchup against Boise?
I am. I think that San Diego State is a really, really good team, and they're playing well again. They had a little spurt where they were kind of struggling. This is a big matchup in the Mountain West. And Boise State, actually, we had on our document last week some picks for Boise State. We didn't get to talk about those because we recorded later in the week. But Boise State swept Utah State, and Utah State beat San Diego State twice. So you see some of these things, but I'm just going to take the team that I think is playing the best right now, and I think that's San Diego State. But Boise State and San Diego State, to me, are both teams that I see firmly in the tournament at large bids. They don't have to win their tournament to make it. I think they're both going to make it anyway, and I really expect a dogfight in this one. I don't think they're going to win by 14. But I'm just going to take the team that's playing inspired, that's believing in themselves right now. And I think Brian Dutcher, the coach of San Diego State, is one of the most underrated coaches in the country.
Yeah, I've heard you say that a couple times. I agree with you. San Diego State, I think, is going to win this game. I think it's going to be close. I think it's going to be a great game, but I think it's just too much point going to San Diego State and beating them. I think Boise State's just also a little bit inconsistent in my eyes, and so I think that's definitely something that I hold a little bit in a higher light for San Diego State, is they're just more consistent as a unit. So I think consistency aspect of things as well as playing at home, too much for me to go against the Aztecs here. All right, number 5, Illinois traveling to number 23, Wisconsin in a big matchup in the Big Ten. Your thoughts on this game?
Got Illinois. I think they're heading in a great direction. They're really starting to believe. They're starting to coalesce as a team. Ayo Dosunmu is, I think we can kind of say Luka Garza is going to be Big Ten Player of the Year, going to be National Player of the Year, but Ayo Dosunmu is really closing that gap. And you know, it's the same thing. It's about belief. And that's a team that is really believing right now. And I think Kofi Coburn believes he's the best big in the country right now. He's playing very confidently, and all their other pieces are playing their roles. And that's something you don't see too often in college, because a ton of people are used to being the man. And this time, I think they understand their roles. They're playing with a big time duo. And then as for Wisconsin, I just think they're heading in the wrong direction entirely. I think they've lost belief in what they do. And sometimes with experienced teams, it's a really good thing in close games, but other times I think they know what they are, and they see like, hey, we've hit our ceiling, our potential's been hit. And I think they've kind of eased off the gas pedal, whether that's true or not. That's just the sense I've been getting from watching them recently. So I've got Illinois in this one, and it's weird betting against Wisconsin at home, but I feel confident in this one somehow.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And I think confidence is the key. And Illinois is playing with that confidence. Kofi Coburn's playing with that confidence. It seems to me like almost like all of that talk about Luka Garza in Iowa and how he's just going to be the conference player of the year, a shoe-in. And he's like the best big in Big Ten in the Big Ten conference. And I think Kofi Coburn's taking that a little bit personally in a way. Kofi's a beast. Kofi's a monster. And Ayo Dosunmu is so good. He's just an incredible basketball player. I love watching him play. Anytime the ball's in his hand, something good happens. So I love Illinois in this matchup. I also am a little bit surprised that Wisconsin is still in the rankings personally. I think saying that they don't deserve to be ranked is a little bit harsh, but also they have not really had any sort of proving ground to say we still belong here. They've had a lot of big matchups recently, and they haven't necessarily gotten blown out in any of them, but they also haven't really threatened a win in any of them either. So I would say that Wisconsin is desperately in need of any sort of positive momentum, but I think Illinois has a chance to really run Wisconsin on their own home floor. So I think if that happens, I would watch out to see if Wisconsin really does fall pretty dramatically, and not only falling out of the rankings, but also in some of the KenPom rankings and things like that of how people view some of these teams, because they're, in our eyes, they're lost. So we'll see what happens, but I got Illinois big in this one personally.
Yeah, I mean, KenPom still has them at 13th overall, but I think if you watch them, they just don't look inspired the same way that they did earlier in the year when they were a top tier team. I think they either realized that they weren't good or just are having some internal battles that we don't know about. But as of late, they haven't looked good, in my opinion. And I hope they turn it around, because this is a team that I feel like you could trust in March Madness if they're playing well at the end, because they've got all that experience. It's just a matter of flipping the switch.
Yeah, I agree. All right, moving back to the SEC, you got LSU traveling to number 20 Arkansas. This is a big game. This is a big week for Arkansas. They're going to play LSU, and as we'll see here in a bit, in one of our games of the week, they have a matchup with Alabama. I'm very high on this Arkansas team. What they're doing, they're playing good basketball, but boy, LSU can score. What do you got in this one?
Geez, yeah, I don't know. I mean, here's my predicament with this one is both teams score well, and typically you in those type of matchups you want to take the team that scores better, and that's LSU. But it's just like LSU seems to play with reckless abandon, and Arkansas's got a bit more of a structure. So I think I'm going to go with Arkansas. I actually really enjoy watching LSU. I usually hate teams that are extremely one-dimensional, to the point where LSU is, where they're reckless, but they just score. They just have so much talent. But I enjoy watching them. I think Cam Thomas is a puzzling player. I'll put it that way. But I'm gonna go with Arkansas. I think they're getting hot at the right time, and I think they're at least going to win one this week in those two difficult matchups with LSU and Alabama. So I'll go with Arkansas. And it's an interesting matchup if you're a draft nerd. Moses Moody versus Cam Thomas is one that I think a lot of scouts will be watching.
Yeah, I agree. I think Arkansas needs this one, because I think they're going to lose to Alabama. We'll get to that here in a bit. But I think going 1-1 this week is just fine. We mentioned that in our news episode of awarding teams for going 1-1 when they play tough matchups, rather than awarding teams that are beating pretty much the doormats of their conference. So I think this is a huge matchup for Arkansas. They're playing at home, and I love that going for them in this game. But LSU, man, can score the rock. So it makes me less gung-ho to pick Arkansas, but I'm still going to take Arkansas at home to get it done and get at least one win this week. All right, back to the ACC. Florida State is up to number 11 in the country, and they are traveling to Chapel Hill, North Carolina, to take on the Tar Heels. This would normally be a huge game, big crowd, all that good stuff. Not going to happen, but I'm still really looking forward to this one. I think there's a lot going for this matchup. Who you got between these two ACC schools?
I think you got to go with Florida State. I think they're not going to be overwhelmed physically down low as much as a lot of teams are by North Carolina's bigs. And that's really what wins North Carolina games. And Florida State's got some really long athletic players, and sure, I think they'll be out rebounded, but I just think that Florida State is too much offensively right now, along with their ball pressure defense. I think Caleb Love's going to have a night to forget. I could be wrong, and I kind of hope I am. I hope that guy continues to develop his confidence because he's starting to play better. But Florida State makes experienced veterans really, really have long nights. So I feel like a freshman guard that is having a shortened offseason is going to have a painful night against Florida State. So long story short, I'm going with Leonard Hamilton and company and roll, get the Noles going.
Yeah, I'm on board. I'm all on board Florida State until the wheels come off at this point, especially with their last couple experiences where they've played really well against Virginia. They followed that up with another win over Pitt. I'm taking Florida State in this one. This is a tough matchup. North Carolina's playing better basketball. They're rebounding at what we usually see them rebound. They're shooting the ball a lot better, which was the problem early on in the year. And they're starting to believe in themselves, which I think is problematic. But I think Florida State has everything that they need to get this done. And this is also a game that they definitely need to play well in. And I think that same thing could be said though about North Carolina, because if North Carolina is going to want to push for an NCAA tournament bid, you just saw Duke beat Virginia, who was in the top 10. So this is another huge proving ground for them to kind of get a big win of their own. But I think Florida State's just a little bit too much personally. So I'll take Florida State as well on the road. All right, moving back to the Big 12, number 2 Baylor is traveling to number 17 Kansas. This is going to take place a little bit later this week. Who you got in this one between Baylor coming off pause and Kansas, who's playing really good basketball?
Yeah, the way you prefaced it, it makes me nervous for Baylor, but I just think Baylor's too good. I think that Baylor is phenomenal. I've been pretty transparent about thinking that they're the best team in the country. So I'm gonna take Baylor. I think that they just have a mold of they shoot the ball. They're the number 1 3-point shooting team in the nation. They play elite defense. And I think they've got the best combination of offense and defense in the nation. So I'm going to pick Baylor. I don't know if they're going to go undefeated throughout the entire season. I've said that all year, but I don't think there's going to be a game where I don't pick Baylor to win. So that is my rationale. I think Jared Butler is also the best player on the floor.
Yeah, I'm going to go Baylor as well. I think they're just too much. Their guard play, their depth, the way they are able to defend as well as play offensively, and their shooting is just always blows me away. So I think it's just too much for Kansas. I don't think they have the pieces to really match up with each matchup that they're going to need to win in order to beat a Baylor team. The only way that I see Kansas really competing in this one, not competing is the wrong word, of getting a win in this one, is if Baylor comes out and doesn't play well. That's the only way that I see Kansas getting it done. And that's kind of harsh to say because Kansas is playing really good basketball. I just think that the gap is that big. I remember watching this game earlier on in the year and just being like, holy crap, Baylor's good. Like Kansas had no chance from the opening tip. Baylor was just like, we're absolutely going to run you out of the gym. And so I think if Baylor shows up with that mentality to Allen Fieldhouse, I think it's going to be a long night for the Jayhawks. But if Baylor comes out flat, comes out slow, doesn't play necessarily their best basketball, Kansas has the playmakers and are playing in a way that makes me nervous. But like you said, I don't think there will be a game that I don't pick Baylor in so far this season. So
what's funny is I think that this game will be far more competitive, but the score will be the exact same in terms of the differential. Because at the end of the game, there's tons of garbage time in that one. I think this one will be like a legitimate 8-point win for Baylor, and that one was an 8-point win that felt like a 25-point win. And I just think that Baylor is a type of team that has the veterans, that has the guard play that can get past a long pause. And I think it's a really nice thing that they play Iowa State, who's has not gotten a win in the Big 12. They play them Tuesday. So I think that can really help them by getting them experience, getting their feet wet again. And then they can enter the big games with West Virginia and Kansas with more confidence than they otherwise could have.
Yeah, I agree. I think one of the only things also that speaks to me is that they are going to play 3 games this week. That's more than normal for a college basketball normal week. They're making up games due to the pause that they went on. So it'll be interesting to see if kind of tired legs come into aspect of anything later on this week when they play West Virginia and Kansas. But like you said, man, Baylor's just everything that we've seen just makes you believe more and more. And so I'm going to stick with that belief and stick with Baylor on the road. All right. One more, 2 more actually we have for you in the Big 12. We have number 14 Texas traveling to number 18 Texas Tech. In-state rivalry here. You got this one because this one can make you rip your hair out. It just how do you know? How do you know who to pick?
The worst part of this picking, this docket, is what I'm realizing is we have a bunch of teams playing 2 games, and you don't feel like too many of the teams are going to 2-0, but you don't think they're going to get 0-2. And whichever way you spin it, you're going to have someone that's going to bite you in the butt. And I think Texas is really a good contender for that one for me. Geez, I don't know. I'm gonna take Texas. I think Texas in this one has. I think Texas Tech's deficiencies offensively can help Texas gain confidence because where their bread is buttered is their defense, and they can. Although Texas Tech put up a nice offensive performance in the second half against Texas last time in order to get that win in Austin, I think that Texas has guards that can score more easily and navigate the defensive pressure that Texas Tech puts on them more easily than Texas Tech is able to do so to Texas. And then hopefully Greg Brown, Kai Jones, and Jericho Sims can continue their play because they haven't really been the issue. They've played really well. And then the guards that are so talented at Texas just kind of are having mental issues. And I think at this point that they're going to have them figured out or they're kind of done. They'll certainly make the tournament regardless of what happens. They could lose out the entire rest of the season, probably still make it, but they're done in terms of competing. And I think Shaka is too good of a coach to have that happen to them.
Yeah. And when you said these teams are playing 2 games a week, how does it feel? How does it make you feel that I'm picking Kansas to lose twice and they've been playing some of the best basketball out of any of these teams recently? So that's got to make you feel good personally. But I'm going Texas 2-0 this week. I'm taking Texas on the road over Texas Tech. I just really love what they do. And I think they match up well against Texas Tech. I think their length and athleticism are things that Texas Tech's going to have a hard time kind of not controlling, but keeping in check. And so I think that they're going to be able to go out and get a bucket whenever they need one. And so with that aspect of things, I also really I love the matchup of Coleman or Jones on Mac McClung. I think that's going to be real must see TV. It's going to be really fun to watch that go on. And I think they're some of the best guards other than every single guard that plays for Baylor in the Big 12. But yeah, I'm excited for this one. I think Texas is going to be able to have enough to get it done. And if Texas goes 2-0 this week, they're going to be on a springboard back into real talks and what's going down in the Big 12. I don't know if they're able to get back into regular season contention, but having that momentum going into the conference champion tournament is going to be big, as well as the NCAA tournament. So give me Texas again. Hopefully the Longhorns go 2-0. Hook 'em, baby.
Uncle Mo better be on their side then. I mean, if you get there, I mean, as Dickie V says, Uncle Mo, you got to be kidding me, baby. Because if they swing this one, they're in like a little bit of a tailspin. They're fighting each other on the bench, and they go 2-0 this week. That could be a terribly dangerous team because if they start believing, they defend really hard. I would not like to see them in a tournament setting if they start turning it around now.
Yeah, I agree with you. All right, let's jump down to the Big Ten. And somehow this is not a game of the week. This is the last game before we've gotten to our games of the week. And we have number 9, Iowa, traveling to number 4, Ohio State. We just saw Ohio State and Michigan play. We will get to another massive matchup in the Big Ten this week as one of our games of the week. But this is an enormous game in the Big Ten. I'm very high on both of these teams. I think they have a lot of good pieces both ways. Ohio State, how do they bounce back from coming off of that loss to Michigan? And Iowa, this is a chance to really stomp on a scenario to get back into the fold in a Big Ten conference championship discussion. So who you got in this one? And yeah, maybe some reasoning as to why considering this is such a good game.
Well, first and foremost, I have zero idea. I've been tossing it through my head all day, and I can't figure it out. I love what Iowa's been doing. They've improved defensively. They're shooting the ball really well. I mean, even in a game where there was a stretch where Luka Garza wasn't playing that well offensively, and he was still, putting up 20 and 10. But then he's starting getting his groove back. Joe Wieskamp had a bad game against Penn State, but he was still able to get a double-double. Their best players are playing very well. I think Ohio State is going to win this game because they are at home, and they won't want to lose 2 in a row. So I'm going to go with Ohio State. I'll be rooting for Iowa. I just love watching Luka Garza and Joe Wieskamp and Connor McCaffrey, my favorite player on that team. I'm going to shamelessly plug him until everyone in America knows. but I think Ohio State's going to win because their defense is just a touch better. Not very much though. And the reason I think they'll win is they can stretch you out with EJ Liddell. I think Justice Suing had a really poor game against Michigan, and I don't think he'll do that twice. And last time they played Iowa, he had a great game. And you saw Justin Ahrens last time they played. Justin Ahrens had 0 points against Michigan. That's not going to happen again. You saw Kyle Young have 5 points. I think he'll have a better game. I just think there's a bit of a regression to the mean, and I think there's going to be a little bit of a hunger. And I think at the end of that game, in the second half, Ohio State exposed some holes in Iowa, and I think Chris Holtmann is tactically going to win this game just with his an incredible ability. I think he might be the best in terms of in-game adjustments that I've seen. He makes a lot of adjustments at halftime, and they close games very well. So I'm going to go Ohio State, but like I said, I'll be rooting for Iowa in this one, so it doesn't hurt me too badly if I'm wrong.
Yeah, I have no idea. I really have no idea what to do here. I love Iowa. I love the way that they play. I love that they have so many competitors: Wieskamp, Garza, Bohannon. Is CJ Frederick playing? Do we have any sort of update on him? He's good to go. All right. Well, then I'm going to just completely cement myself into the Iowa pick here. I do think that when Iowa has all of their pieces and they're playing well, they're one of the best teams in the country. And that sounds kind of stupid because they're ranked number 9. I get it. But with that being said, they've been without Frederick for a while. They've had a couple guys out of their lineup. Keegan Murray's a stud. You just got people that can hurt you from all aspects of the court. If they shoot well, they're going to score a lot of points on Ohio State. With that being said, the same exact thing can be said about Ohio State because they shot 50% from 3 against Michigan and still scored like 80-some points. Michigan just scored 90. So I'm just in a complete tailspin. I don't really know what to do, but I have Iowa written down, so I'm going to stick with my guns and pick Iowa. It's going against everything that I have morally about picking games, about home team, things like that. But I would say that Iowa almost somehow needs a win in this game more than Ohio State does, even with Ohio State coming off of that loss with Michigan. So I think Iowa's going to be really hungry coming out into this one, and I think that's going to play a big factor into what's going to happen. So give me Iowa, I guess. I have no idea.
Yeah, I mean, I have no clue, but what I do know is Iowa's got the probably the worst week of any team this entire season. They're playing Michigan and Ohio State this week.
Yeah.
And both are on the road, I think. So that is a tough week, and I don't want to see them go 0-2. I just don't think that that the way the schedule aligns is great for them. So I went with Ohio State, but like I said, I have no clue. I'm just going to go with Holtmann. I think it's the better coach than Fran McCaffrey, even though I really like what Fran does. So that I can't believe that's not a game of the week for us. We got 3 doozies for you coming up.
Yeah, we said it's a good week, and we were not kidding when we said that. I'm really excited to see that Iowa-Ohio State game, but even more so, there's just great matchups throughout the week. We got a couple for you here, and the first one that we'll start off with is in the SEC. Now, every game that we kind of give our pick for and a score for here, we will have a preview come out on Instagram TV as well as our YouTube channel about our preview for the game. It'll be current. It'll be the day before. It'll be the day of the game. You'll get to be able to watch the preview. And then if you do want to, you can watch the actual game. And each and every one of these, we will definitely be hopping on Instagram Live afterwards to recap, give our thoughts, all of that good stuff. A lot to get to in these 3 games, and there are 3 landmark games throughout 3 different conferences, but we're starting things off in the SEC. Number 6, Alabama is traveling to number 20, Arkansas. Alabama only has 1 loss in conference play so far. But with that being said, Arkansas is playing really good basketball. They're hot, they're consistent, and they're at home. So I think a lot of these factors are coming into things, and we've seen Alabama only beat Vanderbilt by 5. So Alabama might be on that little bit of an inconsistent streak, but I'm not going to try and persuade you any further. You have IDK written down on the document. Give me your pick for this one, and what's your score?
Well, I still don't know. I think I'm going to go with Alabama. I just think that Herb Jones is so versatile, and they've got a little more experience. Their scores, I should say that their scores have more experience putting up big numbers. And I think this will be like a fast-paced but better defensive game than most SEC games have been. They typically are very high-scoring, fast-paced. I think that Alabama's defense has really improved throughout the year, and their biggest weapon is Herb Jones and his versatility. And then I think that John Petty and Jaden Shackelford are better top-tier scorers and then supplementary weapons to Herb Jones than what Arkansas can employ. So I'm just going to go purely based on personnel. I'm going to go with Alabama. I do think that Arkansas is playing better basketball right now. I think that this wakes up Alabama. They wake up for a challenge and play one of their better games of the year. So I'm going to go with Alabama about 70. I'll go 77-74.
Yeah. I'm with you on this one. I definitely agree that if you look at it just strictly based off of personnel and talent, it's advantage Alabama. If you look at it via the lens of who's playing the best basketball, who's been playing more consistently as of late, who has more to play for, honestly, it's Arkansas. But when I think of this matchup going down, I think you absolutely hit the nail on the head. There's just too many guys, too many weapons to match up with when you're Arkansas. And I really do like what Alabama does. I think they're a step below some of the top teams in the country, but they're a threat to be reckoned with in the SEC. I think they're the threat to be reckoned with. So I give me Alabama on the road, 82-75. They just extended their coach for another trillion years. So we love to see that. We love to see the consistency aspect. It's not a trillion years, by the way. It's 5 or 6 years, whatever it was. Give me Alabama. I'm going to go all in on that one, and I roll tide. Whoever thought we would hear the day that Scott says roll tide, but let's roll with it.
I'm not sure I liked hearing it, to be honest. It was kind of odd, knowing that usually when we think football, we're rooting for anyone to beat Alabama. But I agree with you on this one. And the next one's also a doozy, and one where we're gonna be tripped up here, because one team we have been really high on, and I think before a lot of people were, is West Virginia, and one team that we both have loved, that everyone loves, is Baylor. So I'll let you start on this one, because I actually do have an answer on this one, but I wanted to comment on how odd it was to hear roll tide. So I'll provide that transition. So who do you got between West Virginia, number 10 West Virginia at number 2 Baylor? They're going back to the Farrell Center, haven't played there in a while. Do they take care of the Mountaineers and Huggy Bears crew?
Yes, they do. To answer that question, Baylor wins, but it's going to be a doozy. It's going to be a great game. First and foremost, one last final thought on Roll Tide is I was Devontae Smith's biggest fan last season, so I'm starting to go past my morals of rooting for the underdog, but I love Devontae Smith and everything that he stood for. So anyway, completely random sidebar, but yes, Baylor and West Virginia. I do think Baylor wins. I think playing at home is a big edge here. They do allow fans, and every time I've seen Baylor play at home, the fans have made an impact. They've been loud, they've been there, they've been vocal. They're very supportive of this Baylor team. I think that I have a score written of 83-79. I'm not sure Baylor's going to score that much. That would be the only thing for me. I definitely think they outscore West Virginia, but West Virginia plays good defense. But the combination here is what does it for me. The combination of talent, both offensively and defensively for Baylor. They can shut you down defensively, and then they can go run and get an easy bucket like a team that I haven't seen in a really long time. So I think that consistency factor really speaks to me in picking Baylor in this one. They have the better guard play. They have, like you say, bigs with more girth, in my opinion, that could handle some of what Derek Culver brings to the table with his threat inside and his big physical presence. Mark Vital is someone that I can see going up against him with being able to bring that girth to the table, but I'm going to hammer that one in until submission. But yeah, I like Baylor in this matchup. I feel more confident for some reason taking Baylor here at home against West Virginia than I did taking them against Kansas, which is surprising. But with that being said, Give me Baylor at home, 83-79 final.
Well, I agree with you, and Mark Vidal's a girthy fellow. He really is. He's a scrappy dude. I'm going Baylor 79-70, and I just think that West Virginia won't be able to shoot as well as they have been. They've been really reliant on 3-point shooting between Sean McNeil and Deuce McBride and Taz Sherman coming back. I think that the perimeter defense of Baylor is otherworldly. And you got Davion Mitchell, Jared Butler, Maceo Teague are all good scorers. And that's kind of what people think of. But I would argue all three of them are probably just as good of defenders, especially Davion Mitchell. Davion Mitchell is a disgustingly good defender. And I think that Deuce McBride is going to really have a tough time scoring against Davion Mitchell. And I think that McNeil and Sherman won't get as much space as they're accustomed to because no other team has the trio of perimeter defenders of the caliber of Baylor. So I wouldn't be surprised if it were more points had Baylor been playing games leading up to this one. But I think that because they're kind of getting their feet wet, it won't be a crazy big win. But I'm going to keep them winning by more than 8. So 79-70 Baylor Bears for me.
Yeah, I like that a lot. All right, our final game of the week is in the Big Ten. We've kind of hinted at the matchup. It is going to be a big one here between number 9 Iowa traveling to number 3 Michigan. I've really loved what I've seen from both of these teams, and I've been looking forward to this matchup for a while. I do think these are the 2 best teams in the conference. Who you got and why, and what's your score?
It's hard to argue against Michigan right now. I think that their combination of offense defense is probably second or third best in the nation. I think Baylor's got the best combination, and I think they're top 10 in both sides in KenPom. And I just think that there's a rare ability for Michigan to have size and speed. They've got both, and it's not like in pure athletes like Greg Brown and Kai Jones in Texas, but I see Franz Wagner as like a very skilled guard almost that just happens to be 6'10". And then you got Isaiah Livers who stretches the floor, and then you have Hunter Dickinson who should be able to battle physically inside with Garza. And I'm not saying that he will win that matchup, but it wouldn't be the most stunning thing on the planet if he could hold his own, if not win that matchup. So I'm going to go with Michigan's combination, and it hurts me to pick against Iowa twice because I'm like the Iowa man. I was the one who said that they were top 5 last year when they were not even in the top 25. So I think Michigan's just a better team overall, and that's what it boils down to. And I also think that I don't see a lot of space for Jordan Bohannon and CJ Frederick to get off threes against Michigan. I think that their defense is pretty quick and pretty physical. So I'm gonna go with Michigan. I'm gonna go 88-80, a high scoring affair. But it's a competitive 88-80. But I think you see the better team prevail.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with pretty much everything that you said. Hunter Dickinson's going to be a big matchup to watch with Luka Garza in this one. I think he's been impressing me all season long with his play, not only defensively, but scoring as well from the center position for Michigan. I think foul trouble might be an issue there. If he gets into some foul trouble against Garza early, maybe watch out for that one. But because I'm not really sure that past Dickinson, they have a guy that can really be that guy to shut Garza down if they need to. But with that being said, Franz Wagner, Isaiah Livers, some of these dudes that are just able to take care of the ball. And Michigan really proved their depth in their win against Ohio State. That's one of the things that stood out the most to me in that game. Sean D. Brown had 15 points off the bench, and he's a guy that was coming in for defensive specialty situations, which was just a really good performance for him in general. I think Michigan is a lot better than a lot of people give them credit for. So I'm going to go ahead and say that they're going to win this game 85-81. I love Iowa, and I do think that these are the best 2 teams in the conference. I just think Michigan is in a place where they're somehow still even playing better basketball than they were when they left on pause. So they're just a juggernaut right now. And with Iowa having to play both Michigan and Ohio State in a week, it's going to be really tough, and it's going to be hard to pull both of those out, in my opinion.
Yeah, absolutely. And one of the biggest things to me in this game is whose bench plays better, because Michigan plays eight men. They play Brandon Johns, Austin Davis, and Chauncey Brown off the bench, and Iowa plays similar amount. They play Keegan Murray. When fully healthy, Keegan Murray comes off the bench along with Jack Nungy and Patrick McCaffrey. And you sometimes see Joe Toussaint or Aaron Eulis, but they basically each play 8 men the majority of the minutes. And if one side gets foul trouble, whether it be Garza or Dickinson, it'll be really interesting to see whose bench can step up, because I think there's got to be some fouls thrown in there, because those two are extremely physical, and so much of both of their offenses is just relying upon them getting deep position and drawing double teams and kicking out. So shooting is a huge deal in that game, as well as foul trouble and bench play. So that's might be my favorite game of the year if it lives up to the case. Like, entering that game, I think stylistically this will be a great game to watch.
Yeah, I agree with you. I agree with you for sure. It's going to be really fun. I'm really looking forward to it. I think this is going to be another Big Ten one that really delivers down the stretch. So that's going to do it for our picks. We've picked a lot of games this week, and it's a big week of games. So hopefully y'all enjoy it. Hopefully y'all enjoy this format of where you get to kind of digest this content whenever you kind of see fit, and not necessarily are daunted by a long hour and a half, hour plus Spotify episode or something like that. And hopefully y'all enjoy seeing our faces once in a while. So yeah, that's going to do it for our picks episode. Once again, that's Leif. I'm Scott. This is the College Sports Hive. Make sure to follow along on all of our platforms. It'll be lovely to see you there. So take care, everyone. Stay safe, and we'll catch you sometime this week.
Have a good one.